How to tell if a guy doesn't like you through his text messages. It's time to help a lover out. Kindly give this video a like and subscribe for more videos like this. Texting has essentially cemented itself as one of the most vital tools that people use to communicate with one another these days. And that's why texting has also become so important in the realms of relationships and dating. When you are just starting to get to know someone, you always want to get a read on whether they are interested in you or not. But sometimes, that isn't exactly the easiest thing to do. However, did you know that it was possible to tell if a person is into you based on how they text you? On a quick notes, I will give you 3 hints on how to know if he doesn't like you through his text messages, and after that I will give you few scenarios to find out, so don't miss those tips. 2. He never texts you first. He never really texts you first. That's a great indicator that he's not interested in you. He obviously has other people he would much rather talk to. It's either that or he's just not a cell phone guy in particular. Either way, it's not a good sign for you at all. 3. He responds to your questions but never asks any in return. One big sign that he's not interested is if he just doesn't want to get to know you at all. It's very obvious that he doesn't really care much for you if he doesn't ask you any question about your life. If you're always the one who is asking questions, then chances are that you're the only one who's interested. 4. He takes hours to respond. Sometimes, he doesn't even respond at all. Okay. Sometimes, a man isn't going to be on his phone. He might be busy. He might be trying to focus on his work or something. He might be in a meeting. Whatever. It's okay if he doesn't reply to you right away sometimes. But if he just never replies to you right away, then you should know something is off. Yes, it's very much possible. In fact, it's not as difficult as you might think. You just have to make sure that you make yourself aware of the various signs that a guy is really into you or not. You're here because you want to know the biggest signs a guy doesn't like you through texting. You want to be able to figure out how he feels about you from looking at his texts. Maybe you just met him and you're texting back and forth and it's not clear how he thinks of you yet. Maybe you text with a friend who you developed feelings for, and you want to see if he feels the same way by looking at his texts. It feels bad to be in the dark about how a guy feels about you, and doubly so when you have to keep texting with him. How flirty should you be? What if he's not interested? Are you going to say the wrong thing? It's hard enough to figure out how a guy feels about you from talking to him, but with texting it can be even harder. You have to try to figure out his feelings just from reading his words, rather than his body language or his inflection when he talks to you. I'm going to cover 3 scenarios: if he thinks of you as just a friend, as someone he can booty call but not date, or as someone he's not interested in at all. How to tell if he thinks of you as just a friend from his texts. This is one of the hardest situations to figure out. If he thinks of you as a friend, then he's going to text with you a lot, the same that you would expect from a guy who likes you. So you can't look at how often he texts you, you have to look at what he texts you. For instance, if he's texting you about advice for what he should do with another woman, that's a huge sign that he thinks of you strictly as a friend and not someone to date. A guy who liked you would never text for advice about another woman. In the same vein, if he gave your number to one of his friends, that means that he almost certainly doesn't like you, or he wouldn't have given his friend the go-ahead to text you. If you try to be flirty with him and he doesn't play along, that's a big sign that you're just a friend to him. That goes double if he responds by telling you to stop, or telling you that you're being weird. It helps to look at the content of the texts themselves. If he's texting you about typical guy stuff that you'd expect him to text with his male friends about, that's a sign he thinks of you as a friend rather than something more. After all, if he was into you he probably wouldn't be texting you gross stuff about his bowel movements or really any of his biological functions. He'd save that for his friends instead. Finally, if he's often calling you his friend in your texts, or his buddy, or pal, that's a not so subtle way of saying that he's not interested in anything past that. How to tell if he thinks of you as just a booty call from his texts. In this type of situation, it's hard to figure out how he feels about you, especially if you're hoping for something more with him. After all, if he's booty calling you, chances are you've already hooked up a few times. So you know he's at least attracted to you, but does he really actually like you? There are a few signs to look for when he's texting you that tell you that he's really only interested in a booty call. For instance, the most obvious sign is when he texts you. If he's only texting you late night, and usually sending texts like, "You up?" it's very obvious where his mind is and how he thinks of you. In the same vein, if all his texts to you are sexual in some way, whether they're selfies, or innuendo, or straight up sexts, that tells you that he's really only interested in you in a sexual way. If it seems like he's really not putting in any effort into the conversation, let's say he never texts back in a timely manner if you text him about anything other than sex, or he only sends you super short replies, that's a sign he's not interested in talking to you, which means he's not really interested in you. If he's always asking you for naked pics or nude selfies, that's a very big giveaway about his feelings for you. Finally, if he's already seeing someone and he wants a sexual relationship with you on the side, that's a huge sign that he's not interested in dating you, and really just wants casual sex and nothing more. How to tell if he's completely not interested in you from his texts? It's hard to be objective about whether you think you have a chance with a guy when you really like him. You're wrapped up in hoping that he'll like you back, and that might blind you to the truth of how he's really treating you. That's why it's important to look for these signs in a guy who you really like who you're texting with. If he's giving you these signs, chances are he's flat out not interested in you, and you'd be better off looking for someone new. The first and most obvious sign is that he never texts you back. If you're texting this guy and he never responds, that should be a blindingly obvious sign that he's not interested in you. If he keeps the text strictly business, only talking about some logistical thing that he has to solve with you and veering the conversation away from anything that's even slightly personal, it tells you that he wants to keep your relationship professional and has no interest in a more intimate connection. If he flakes on you and doesn't even text you to tell you he's not coming, or apologize or tell you why he flaked, it tells you he doesn't feel like he has to be considerate towards you, which means he's not interested. If he never ever sends you an interesting text, all his texts are as bland as possible, he doesn't joke or make you laugh, and he doesn't even really seem tapped in or connected to the conversation, that's a huge sign he's not interested in you. Along the same lines, if your conversations are always flat, boring, and uninspired, the texting version of small talk you'd make with a stranger, that's a big sign he's not even interested in having a good conversation with you. Finally, if the only time he texts you is when he wants or needs something, you can be sure that means that he's just using you for something he needs, and that he's not interested in any sort of relationship with you. I know some of this can sound harsh, but the reality is that the sooner you realize what a guy's real feelings are, the sooner you can move on and find someone who will actually reciprocate what you feel for them. Good luck. How did you find out that he likes you or don't like you through his messages? Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so I can continue making videos like this for you.